Hey, Greg Ugaldi, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing today, Dave?
Yeah, I'm doing great. This is awesome that you're back on with us today. It's been about a month since our last update. And the
Right.
fact that you've agreed to come on and share what's happening from the top with us and talk offsite and talk anything that's really going on at the NAHB on
Right.
a national level. I'm just so grateful and so blessed to have you here. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
So, Greg, let's hop into it here. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook,
Hmm.
and we got a lot of topics to cover today. So I want to welcome all of our guests that are joining us, and if you could, please hit like and share, and also, if you don't mind, tell us where you're from. We'd love to know where you're from for joining us. And this is an interactive conversation, Greg. So we're going to accept
Good.
conversation throughout the entire program. You're good with that, right?
Sure. That's perfect.
I love it. I love it. All right. So we have Greg Ugaldi, the immediate past chairman of the NAHB on. Greg, one of the things we talked about before the show was how builders can help out this troubled economy of ours. Can you give a little insight on what you meant by that?
Sure. You look right now and everybody is trying to adjust to this whole pandemic approach. So it's affecting our work, it's affecting how we deal with people, but it's really affecting your home as well. So, for example, you see a lot of people that are located in the city of New York. And so those people are looking and saying maybe there's some place that might be a little safer, at least for the short term, and who knows where that's going to take us in the long term. But overall, we look at the economy has a lot of troubling aspects because of this, that the whole school situation is up in the air. We're trying to balance distance as well as staying involved and staying active. All the studies show that people have to engage with each other and have to promote some type of gathering. It's what we do as humans, right? So when we look at the economy, one of the things that we notice, we were really looking at quite a strong housing market going into the through March, really, that part of the year, and through some parts of the country where we didn't have as many positive tests and as many deaths, you might say, from COVID-19, we saw that it was much on that same trajectory that we were seeing increased demand for housing. Now, when you look, all areas, there's pent up demand out there. And it really is showing us that if we focus and we're able to reach buyers, and buyers can have the confidence that the banks are going to work with them and that they're in a good spot with their mortgages and so on, we're going to be in, especially with their jobs, right? Employment is such a big thing, Dave, that everybody's got to feel that they have a comfort level there. But the demand is out there, and we're seeing this, and therefore you're going to see home building and remodeling and multifamily, our apartments. It's all going to help lead us out of this situation, if you will, this troubled economy, and we'll be right at the forefront.
Yeah, for sure. So do you see any slowdown in the economy for builders right now?
It's of course there's a lot of caution, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of caution in the workplace, and you see us stressing safety, workforce safety, and things like that, how to do the distancing and the cleaning and all of that. But at the end of the day, materials are increasing in prices. You see lumber now that's doubled. It
Right.
just recently, as a matter of fact. And so you look at all the factors that drive prices up. Well, it's certainly not looking like we're able to control things as far as on the demand side. That means, Dave, a long story is that it's there. Demand for housing is there. In a lot of areas that have been treading water, if you will, we've seen a flare up in recent
Sure.
days and some serious ones around the country. But overall, we still see that demand that's pretty critical to keep us going and to keep all our members trying to identify the spots where they can make the most impact.
Well, for sure. I mean, so we have rising prices, we have things that are shifting in the economy, and that's a given all the time. But what we do also have is, like you said prior, is we have a 1 million home shortage. And that plays a real factor in how we keep moving this economy along, because that supply and demand is what drives the economy. So I think that's kind of a little bit of what you're talking about.
So when you look at it, any time that we're starting with that as a deficit, right? You look at that $1 million shortage. Now, not only do we have to do that, but we have to catch up for this year. So you can see how it drives. Demand really drives our industry. And knowing what we know about that now, one of the things, and this is where, offsite comes in so prominently, is that everything is new in a lot of ways. How are we going to get this done? How are we going to be able to get the workforce that we need, the materials that we need? How can we do this the most efficiently under the constraints that we have? And by definition, it falls right into play with what offsite construction is all about.
Yeah, it really does, because, trying to get these homes built, the traditional way is just not fast enough. We have the ability to get out there and use offsite construction to our advantage, and a lot of people are currently doing that right now. But one of the things within the whole offsite world, and it's also just in regards to all of the builders out there, are codes and issues with codes and things that can delay us to build and don't allow us to move faster.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on what the NAHB is doing to help us there?
Sure. One of the tough areas that with housing affordability, we talked about this a little bit last time. That was really my mantra for the year. Dean followed it, and now Chuck this year, because the challenges that brings are significant and never ending. One of the areas that draws the most attention is codes.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because when you do a code analysis and some of the requirements, as we look across the map, we see that there's a lot of terms and a lot of characteristics of codes that are being implemented that we have to review. So we set up a task force. And so we have our codes committee. They're still in charge of the implementation and the code development. We were very successful there. We have about an 85% success rate of getting the provisions in the codes that we need, and also those that we oppose addressed, because or stopped, if you will, because it's a unique arena that you compete for code provisions in there. In fact, manufacturers are allowed to participate as much. You wouldn't have that legislatively, but on the code side you do, because they're the most knowledgeable, of course, as well. So what we did was we set up with our codes leaders, so our chairman and vice chairman of codes, federal government affairs and state and local government affairs, as well as a state EO, a local EO, and a NAC, and a state representative. I have oversight, and I also co-chair the task force. What we're trying to do is identify where we've seen successful code implementation, if you will, which states have the best procedure.
Yep.
In general, we talk about the latest 2 codes with local amendments that be what we're after in any kind of future legislative granting that they're going to do. And we're working closely with the legislature, with the committee heads, and they don't have a task force. They have the group that is looking at this and trying to get language that would be acceptable to our industry and to those that are looking at this closely to go into the future. So whenever a bill comes up, we're able to say, well, we've already talked to you about that. Here's where we are. And they know that as well. So that hopefully we'll get a lot of that built in from the start whenever and what I'm talking about here, Dave, is that the way this happens legislatively, you can't legislate codes, although they continue to try to get the Department of Energy, for example, involved in code creation. That's just bad. Anytime that we would have that kind of process added to the mix already in codes, it doesn't bode well for our industry. So what we try to do, this is for when they allocate funds. Okay, so they're going to say, in order to get disaster relief, you need to follow this with codes. And the bill's 60 pages, and this is a couple of them. That's where it's most important that we get a jump on this and that we address them. We've had some key legislation that we have. Portman Shaheen, for example, we had to jump in and really address the code provisions there. And we have as you know, a top-notch legislative group and team. Jim Tobin, our chief lobbyist, and I did that. You filmed, we did you taped that at, it was at the Building Systems meetings, right, this past year.
Yeah. That's correct. In Pittsburgh, we had our Building Systems Council Summit.
Right.
And you guys came and you both had a combined keynote together for us, which was great. Yeah. And which was a great update. Yeah, sure. Listen, everybody, if you're just joining us, we have Greg Ugaldi on, the immediate past chairman of the NAHB. And right now we were just talking about codes. I know in the offsite construction industry, we have our own issues with codes, transportation, and so forth. Put in the comments or questions. If you have questions or things you'd like to see changed or what you think is burdensome, it'd be great to hear from everybody in the field that's dealing with it, because now's our chance to bring up a topic and ask questions. Because I do know, Greg, and we talked about this a little bit a couple days ago, even in the state of Connecticut. So there's transportation codes with offsite construction, so to speak. The DOT can get involved. And even in our state here in Connecticut, we're only allowed, and this may have adjusted a little bit since I've last looked at it, but it was where we could only drive our modulars into the state between 12 o'clock at night and 5 a.m. in the morning. And you had to get wherever you were going in the state. The funny part about it is New York law said you had to be off their roads with your wide load by 11. So we were always breaking the rules, for one, trying to get into our state at midnight.
By definition.
What doesn't make sense is if you're a super wide yacht, if you're a super wide new home, somebody's new pool coming down the road, they don't have the regulations. It is just for modular delivery. And that affects, not only the state of Connecticut, but it affects Rhode Island, Massachusetts, everybody.
Yeah. Because as you pointed out, Connecticut's kind of a hub in that.
Yeah.
And I will add that's a great example, Dave, of the type of regulation. So you have codes, but you also have this never-ending weave of regulations. Right. I will tell you this. This is interesting, too. A little inside baseball here, if you will. So when the president took office, we have the opportunity. We sit down with all the cabinet members. And as I said, in the legislature, we meet with all the leaders from both parties. And so in the Senate and the House, but we also meet with all the cabinet members. And we meet with the office of the president. The administration has the president's office and the vice president's office. And we submitted a page we were asked to do so, about 4 pages of regulatory burdens that we either felt were duplicative or were just overreaching. And to date, we've gotten rid of 2 of those pages, and we're already working pretty substantially into a 3rd page, if you will. That's how important it is that we have access to this regulatory approach. It's very different than legislation, for example. It takes the stroke of a pen in a lot of cases. There's always, you have to open it up for comment and for information to be submitted. But especially in the areas that are adding to the price for anybody to buy a home in this country, it's critical that we are able to help be watchdogs in this area, Dave, because it's sometimes people just overlook that when they affect our industry, they're taking out a fire hose, right? And they're just flooding us with all these things that we have to follow. And anytime forget about the added costs on your bottom line, you also have the time delays, the ability to conform and to meet all these requirements. That's additional money and energy and everything else. So everything adds up.
It does. And I think it's really important for everybody to understand. And because of being on video and running these shows all the time, I learn more and more because I get to speak with, somebody like yourself, Devin Perry, Tom Hardiman, all the people that are trying to fight regulation all the time. And I learn every day how important it is to have the support of what you're doing, what the team at the NAHB is doing with these regulatory task force. Though you may not agree with everything that NAHB does or anybody else, there's a whole lot of good that is fighting for us smaller builders out here and manufacturers and site builders. I mean, you kind of have everybody's intentions, at good intentions at hand to stop the burdensome, it's kind of like I don't want to call it the Trump rule or whatever it was. For every new rule you put in, you got to get rid of 2 or 3. And that's kind of what you were saying with the paperwork.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about, when you sit down and you're getting ready to do a proposal and you're looking at, okay, let me do, even from bid to bid or proposal to proposal, it jumps out at you with some of these increases, especially as we just said, with delays and things like that. Or, how many times do we see that you have to add to the inspections, or you need one more hurdle that somebody else has to buy in? And another thing, Dave, you're exactly right. Whenever you talk about this, it looks like everything's multiplying out, right? But how about this one where it appears that people are so comfortable with passing the burden to others. So you have somebody that works for a local municipality, a town, or even the state, and what they do is now they require something for their review. But you have to go out and get a professional to stamp it and sign off on something, so that their role, which used to be that they were the signatory force that got you over the hurdle, now what they do is they require information and then they just judge whether or not that gets you over. But it protects them in a way, if you follow me, because they draw that little bit added passing of the buck, if you will. And this stuff happens all the time, always. And you know what happens, Dave, when we get busy, when you're going to order from the factory, you need to get your order going because you know that people have to be in by school or whatever. A lot of times you say, you know what, the delay is going to kill us. We have to do it. All you have to do is have something that you pass on once, or you don't challenge on Thursday. Does that become the rule now? Is that the new starting point, that you're expected to do that on everything? That's the difficulty that we always end up in an industry. And we do that to ourselves often.
We do. And, I'm not going to harp on what we got going on in Connecticut too much longer, but that's exactly what is happening. It's the passing of the buck. I don't know how many times there was a lawsuit that happened on this, Greg, years ago. And we won the lawsuit for our modulars to come in because there was something happening with the DOT and traffic at the time. Well, we've been in this pilot program for 20 years, and every time we show up to have the conversation, the people that can make the decisions just happen to not be able to make the meeting. And it's been a nonstop thing. So the fact that you guys have a task force out there that are helping work on these things, and you're absolutely right. Right now, we have 1 million homes short affordability. We shouldn't be delaying getting homes anywhere in this country. And all rules need to apply. If it's going to be super wides for modular, well, then your yacht shouldn't be able to come across the highway during the day either, nor should your swimming pool.
That's right.
That's my soapbox. I'll get off it.
And you don't know, Dave, just one thing on that too. So we will have periodic reports. We welcome everybody's input for the task force, but we will have a report ready for IBS, which is February. So there's a lot of work to be done. And in fact, right before we got on the call, I okayed a letter that'll be coming from our chairman, Chuck Falk, and myself, and it'll go to all the members. But we really need to know everybody's input on this codes issue.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, you get it out to us. We'll make sure we push it out to our network and see if we can get you the input you guys are looking for sure. For sure.
Thank you.
Why don't we hop in and say hello to a couple people, Greg? How's that sound?
Sure.
All right. We'll just start at the top and work our way down. Rick Hawkins says it's 93 in hot Atlanta. What's happening, Rick? Hey, look at that. We have Eric Holt, who is the professor, University of Denver, Colorado. We're going to talk a little bit about what they have going on here coming up in the show. So stick with us, Eric. I'm glad you're here. We got Jude. Hey, Jude. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I love it. I'm not sure who this one is. LinkedIn user, # Team Live Chicago. It's Jude? All right. Perfect. And Rick Hawkins, regulatory impact is not only code related, but also local zoning regulations mandate and impact fees at cost that have to be passed through to the consumers. Absolutely. And it does get passed through to the consumers, right? And that's why we have a deficit in homes. They're expensive to afford, for sure. We have cash flow Chris. Are offsite builders creating standard plans to speed up the process? Well, I can answer that one. Absolutely. Most offsite builders all have standard plans, but everybody's lot's different. And every one of them, those standard plans can be redesigned to fit your lot. So I can just answer that one straight out of the box. We got Shane Mcnutt from Nudo. What's happening, Shane? Hope all is well. Thanks for joining us. They do a great job, Greg, of supporting the industry with their products. They have wall products, a lot of commercial products. If you go to a hospital, you see a lot of their products on the walls and floors and stuff. So, which is great. All right. So, hey, Professor Eric Holt agreed. Many zoning codes are written for stick built, but not modular. Some local jurisdiction zoning minimum unit width 1825 don't work to take advantage of modular box width designs and efficiencies. Well, that's very true. But times are changing, and it's like anything else. When you have things like this, Greg, it takes a while for everybody to catch up, right? Offsite construction is becoming more and more prevalent. We're driving it forward. The codes and regulations were originally designed for site builders because that's what it used to be. But now as this is changing, we're hoping we're going to start seeing some of that change as well. And, thanks to Devin Perry and his team and others out there, they're starting to make those moves happen.
And that's one of the reasons, Dave, why sometimes you'll come into a neighborhood and you'll see a configuration where you're loading from the street, but your actual home has to be situated on the lot for those exact reasons, because our current regulations in towns and municipalities need to catch up to what a lot of the offerings are coming from the market. And it'll happen. It just takes a lot of work to get there. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Greg. Maybe you've heard about it from the top, because other parts of the world are already doing this, where they've gone to the code and permitting process online and virtually. None of this having to submit 10,000 pages of paperwork. I know some towns and states are doing it, but it would definitely lighten the load of what we have to do and how much time we have to spend traveling places if that was something that could be pushed out and mandated, that cities and states find a more efficient way to submit paperwork.
It's interesting, Dave, because that one of the things I certainly try to put a silver lining on anything that comes our way. You have to, right? You have to be upbeat about these things because it can get pretty heavy at times. So one of the things that's happened through this whole pandemic is that we've had to really, for survival, find different ways to address some of the same old problems that we've seen. One of those, you see, your podcast and what you're able to do to contact people, state of the art. Reaching out to people virtually. We have to do it for meetings now. We have to do it for so many things. It's also spreading over to trying cases in court, those that you can handle that way. The more adversarial or the more input you need sometime, you can't get to that point. But exactly where this is going, and one of the benefits of us learning how to do so many things virtually will be the permitting process. Yeah. We've had to establish a lot of different requirements along the way. You're able to meet inspections, virtual inspections, where you're filming it. If you have any questions, you go back and you do it. But also exactly streamline the paperwork. Let's get everything filed in a way where it can be reviewed more promptly, more efficiently, and that's where things are headed. So the tools that we're able to gain through these current challenges, we will be able to use in the marketplace and effectively. And it's a great point, because anytime that we can shave off time, better off we are.
Oh, 100%, 100%. You know what? That leads us into the next topic, Greg, because that's bringing technology back into what we do. That's helping us become a little bit more innovative as a group in general in the home building construction arena. And one of the things that we are lacking is the youth, and bringing in the youth to this arena, workforce development. And I would see something like that actually playing a big role in workforce development, because they don't want to swing hammers anymore. You know, they do, but they want the technology too. And I think that's something that, you know, is only a small part of the entire process, but it's still a big part of the process, paperwork.
So you take that side of it, right? So part of the whole paperwork and the ability to learn, we are able to now share that on a lot more regular basis and offer it to a lot more people that are interested in our industry. So that is a plus. And let's go to the well one more time on this, the benefits from some of the things that we are being forced to do during the pandemic that will help us. So now these virtual teaching tools we're able to share. So our NHE, our National Housing Endowment, as well as HBI, our Home Builders Institute, that are bringing these out to the colleges. We just heard from Eric, but our colleges and universities, as well as high schools, all of these things, we're really being able to sharpen our tools and get these products out there. The other byproduct is that with so many people being laid off or choosing not to do certain things, our industry is offering an excellent opportunity, not only from the ability to work outside, but social distancing is possible. Again, plays right into what we offer with offsite construction being a perfect tool also to be implemented in this time frame. You have the ability to control so many things, the building environment, and now what you can do, you know, we were talking about the million shortage plus everything we have to do this year. Think about if you can do site prep and your construction simultaneously on two paths. So when you're ready, boop, you put the two together, you saved half your timeline, right?
Yeah.
That, and you're building in a controlled environment indoors, cool if you need it, hot when you need it. It's just, but not only that, the other thing that we talked about with material increases and all of these things, forget about labor pricing going up, new people coming into the industry. It's a perfect training ground. Everything comes together when we can put something like that under one roof. So workforce development is really critical. It's not going away. We talk all the time about the number of people that we need in our industry to get the work done that we need to. and we have to keep working at it.
Yeah, well, we got to keep plugging away at it. And again, I just always get back. I think just like you just said, the innovation, things changing, offsite construction is going to play a big role in that. The automation that's coming in, these machines and these woodcutters and assembly lines are not for non-educated people either. I mean, you need to have some education in a trade to understand how to operate it. You could be cutting wood, but it could be with a really cool BIM automated computer screen, and I think that's a big thing. And I think that's a reason why offsite construction is also going to help us lead our way into the future here.
So attractive to young thinking minds, as well as people that are looking for a change during this pandemic. What am I going to do next? Perfect alternatives.
It really is. It really is. Greg, there's so many manufacturing facilities opening up across this country right now. And it's not just here across in the country. I mean, there's a lot of offsite construction coming in from overseas. This is what's so great about America, right? And this is what I'm going to say. There's so much opportunity right now in construction, in offsite construction, that even the European market is loading up ships with modules and building in our country because of the opportunities there. And I think that just other people are seeing it as well. We need to take advantage of that. We need to bring that automation, that youth, that workforce development, and make it a key player for the people in this country to actually, build smarter, build healthier homes, and have a great trade and a livelihood.
Yeah. Excellent points. Yeah. It's exciting as you look at it too, because every day we're seeing maybe next time too, what we can do is show some of the, I just thought of that. Maybe we could supplement, throw a few photos up there, like the one that when we're in the White House with some of our youth. And it's great to see the vice president and the president welcoming all these kids from across the country and all the efforts that are being made to welcome people into our industry. It's very exciting.
It is exciting. I had an experience this weekend. I had the fortunate pleasure of moving 17 tons of stone at my house, which, thank goodness that the driver that showed up was a young kid, 22 years old, driving the dump truck, poured out the stone, like buttered it across the drive, which was wonderful. But I was able to talk to him, and I asked him, I said, why the trade and not college? He said, well, college wasn't for me. He goes, and I also didn't want all the debt. He goes, my buddies and friends all went to school. He's making 70 plus that. He told me, he goes, I'm making good money. I have no debt. I got a new truck. I just bought a house, and these guys can't get a job and they're trying to find their way out. He goes, and then he said, and this is what I thought was really cool, Greg. He goes, there's nobody young in my trade. He goes, I have the opportunity to learn from all these he called them old timers, from all the old timers, what they've done, and then put my mind and my sense to make it better, because I'm going to own my own business. And that's 22 years old. He said that to me. I'm going to have you on the show. I said, I'm going to have you on the show.
Well, and it's so true. One of the things that we do, one of our selling points, just to elaborate on that a little bit, first of all, it wasn't missing on us the fact that you went out to the 20-year-old and made conversation and sent in for Jennifer and your daughters to go out and really do the stonework while you were chatting with the guy. So we did pick up on that. But the thing,
I'm good at management, Greg.
But the thing is that's great about this, and we challenge the students with this too, is think about going to your first reunion and you show up in the new car and you show up with your nice clothes on, and you talk about here's everybody else, fighting their way through whatever major they picked in college. And that's the lockstep way everybody did it. But you show up and you're beyond that. Oh, well, how did you get that? I just bought a house too. And, things are working out well. I started my own business. And if you really want to jump on it, you take courses at night. You do whatever else you need that your parents are going to want to see you get your education. You may want to. Yeah. There's so many different tools out there. Watch what you're doing, and we can help with all that, by the way. We have excellent advisors that can help you see it's okay to work with your hands. We got away from that. People were giving up valuable skills that could have been passed along in the generations. We've got to get back to that. That's where you can make exactly what you said, make serious money, hard work, no substitute for it. This young fellow, 22 years old, by the time he's 30, he's going to be so far ahead of where he could have been otherwise.
Yeah, no, definitely so. Really, really was impressed. And I told him flat out, we need more people like him in our industry.
Yes.
So we'll have him on the show and we'll talk about that a little bit. All right, everybody, if you're joining us, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Now is your time to ask questions. We're going to get into some other topics, one being the University of Denver study that is happening on offsite construction. We're also going to end the show with talking about Building Systems Week. And we are also going to talk a little bit about the MMC. Greg, you brought that up. The Modular Mobilization Coalition ended up out of this whole COVID crisis. Well, I'll let you tell it. You heard about it. You're all the way at the top, so I think it's really important that maybe you bring it up.
So there's going to be 15,800 square feet of apartment space in Washington, D.C. And the group, hats off, anytime that you can form a coalition and put your best foot forward like this. So to see somebody like the Modular Mobilization Coalition, MMC, do something like this, they have 4 local signatory factories from within the network that are putting this DC project together. You put boots on the ground and you're able to show off a space like this. And, you're looking at 44 modules. I mean, this is going to be a big project and right where we need it. You're looking at the DC area, which there's always demand and there's always need for these products. It's just so exciting to be able to identify the players in the industry that have learned how to attack it and how to implement what they do best. And this is a great example of it, Dave.
Yeah, it really is. And, I think what's fun about it, and we talked a little bit about this as well, they're making a lot of headway and it's something that hasn't happened in our industry before. And, it's nothing against anybody else that's out there doing it, but they actually, like you said, they built a task force. They put together a coalition and they brought people from all across the country together to make something happen and to make change versus waiting for change to happen. And it really deserves a lot of credit. So I'm glad you're even hearing about it.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Let's hop into it here real quick. We have the NAHE authorizes University of Denver study on modular and panelized construction and the impact on housing affordability. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yes, this is so Freddie Mac gave our National Housing Endowment the green light and the ability to go out and authorize and request this study. So University of Denver, they do it as well as anybody out there and better than most for sure. They are conducting this study. And it's very valuable because these are the exact facts and points that we need to discover and we need to share in order to promote the message and why the efficiencies are needed in an industry that needs these at this time more than ever. So, and Dave, I think that you actually, when we were talking about this at one point, a lot of the information that you're actually nurturing through your series is kind of coming into play with them, right?
It really is. So a few weeks back, Eric Holt, the professor, in fact, he's tuning in today and I'm sure he has some comments in there, but because of COVID, getting out and doing their research on this, obviously it becomes a little bit more difficult. So they are using all the videos that we've been creating over the years, interviewing everybody in offsite construction as part of their data collection and quotes and things that are happening. So, it's who would have thought? Put a camera in front of my face, I start chatting. Now I have universities looking at me. I went to trade school, the military. I have a couple years of college, but I just love it. Who would have thought that would happen from a young kid from Pittsburgh who went to the military for 10 years? You know what I mean? So it's really
Well,
cool.
but the thing is, though, one of the things that you're able to do and continue to do is you have this, and it's a very high level too of your interaction, but the information that you're starting to piece together and get the groups talking and presenting. Anytime that you look at the week of podcasts that you're offering, it's a good cross section and offering the ability to now talk together. Whereas everybody sort of kept their own lanes for so long, we can't afford to do that anymore. We need somebody like you that's putting the pieces together and allowing us to talk. Like, other than I get to MC the awards, by the way, and I'll tell you, University of Denver, they do all right in these awards. It's quite a program that they offer. But it's interesting to see now how we're going to the next level of being able to determine all the things that we talked about: labor, the efficiencies, economies of scale, the things that offsite construction offers. Now we're going to start really defining it more. We're going to start showing how it works into housing affordability. And what that leads to, of course, is in so many cases saying, there's an alternative that can't be overlooked. We have to bring it into play. That's what's going to happen from this.
Yeah, for sure. And Eric, I know you're out there listening. If you want to give us some insights on where you are with the study, that would be great. We had a little bit of a conversation not too long ago, and we talked about, the study is showing it is faster. It is a better way to build. But I believe there's some other things in play, such as culture. And I think, Eric, if you want to give us your 2 cents on that, I'll put that up there. And I also talked to Eric about being able to release some of this data on the show, Greg, and maybe you want to join us for that.
Oh, sure. As a matter of fact, too, as we do these I know that you have a whole slate to fill and things may fit in better, but that could be one that would be interesting to bring in our education piece as well, as because these guys are all working together and more as we go forward, which is a good thing to see.
Well, you know what? It kind of plays to what you just said. We can no longer be islands on our own. We need to collaborate. And I think that would be a lot of fun. The only thing that comes out of collaboration is good stuff, good ideas, more, typically, unless you get two people at butt heads. But for the most part, I like that idea. We should do it. Why don't we, while we see if Eric's going to say anything, take a couple comments, if that's all right.
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Going up here. Rick Hawkins, very informative interview and thoughts from Greg. Well, there you go, Greg. Love it.
Thanks, Rick. I have the $5 coming in the mail.
Yeah, there you go. Eric Holt, they are leading the much needed cultural shift in our industry. They are leading the MMC. Okay, got Jennifer in the background. Good thing she's paying attention to all this. So they are leading our industry in the culture shift and collaboration. Absolutely love it. All right, here's a question from Rick. What are the thoughts for more adaptation of module components by site builders, since most are now using truss and engineered floor systems?
So, and I can take that, Dave. So what happens so take where we are in New England in the Northeast, where generally one of the tougher aspects of trying to look at offsite construction of all sorts is the tough topography and the climate changes, just different things that come in. But most of it relates to the ability of site prep and delivery. Okay. And you heard, Dave hit on some of those challenges just timing wise. Forget about low hanging wires and everything that's historic through some of the older places that you have to cross through. But at the end of the day, what you see, and that was really the progression, Rick, that you look at. You have your ability to start looking at some trusses and some different ways, maybe get into panelization. You start moving along until you actually start taking more advantage of the ability, if you're going to control costs and you're going to try to make it beneficial across the board, you're forced to keep going down that road and looking at your ability to say, here's what the next steps are. Look at, even if it takes me in some of the big houses that we do, it takes 8 boxes or whatever, you bring them in, you fancy them up. And I'll tell you what, the beauty of it is nobody can really tell anymore. If you don't see it being constructed, hard to tell. I mean, you can dress it with dormers, with everything. So.
Yeah. I mean, the only difference in what we do and a site builder does really, Greg, is the process and how we put it together. It's the same code. It's the same structure. You may have a thicker wall here and there, but outside of that, what we can't do at a manufacturing plant, we sure can frame in a nice barrel ceiling on site or something, right? No big deal. Absolutely. All right. Another question. Thank you, Rick. Etienne. Hey, Etienne's the CEO of SIGA North America. Love how you are making the case for the trades. The business model works, and I hope we can find many new construction entrepreneurs. What is your opinion on adopting the European apprenticeship model for tradespersons as an alternative to college?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I appreciate some of the information that I'm receiving on these things because, that question actually set up the challenges that we have whenever we look at this, because right now we had a culture shift in this country where it became no longer, they took shop classes out of our high schools, which was, to me, one of the best things that we ever did. You make your lamps, but at least you're learning too, even some automotive in certain schools. That you went to trade school where you saw a lot more of it in depth. But what we really need to do now is get over that hurdle and say, you know what, we're forcing people to go into disciplines, into majors that they're really not going to use when they graduate, and they're going to look where they can be the most successful. And we have to enter into these talks, look at these models. Our HBI and the endowment are looking at exactly these types of approaches to see what we can work. What I would suggest is that we all start talking together, those groups within the home builders, but also what you see and offer to some of the programs that we're putting together, because it's not like we have all the silver bullet that's going to get us over the hurdle that we need to get over. It's far too high to pass ourselves. We need to share that obligation and to figure out where we're going. So any of those suggestions are good and certainly valuable to look at.
Yeah, for sure. Etienne, if you have access to that information, if you could send it to Greg and myself, it'd definitely be something to look at, and we can definitely pass on to the right people. All right. So Eric Holt has chimed in. Let me start at the top here. So, well, thank you, Eric. Dave Cooper Live is a great supporter of our study. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Makes me feel very, very good. All right. So Eric said, offsite is faster and more efficient. The challenge is the culture shift in how we buy framing and get the labor market framers to change.
Dave, that you've heard me say this before, Eric, and you and I, Eric, we've never talked about this, but I will tell you that's the issue on the head. That nails it. What happens, and we've looked at this, we've experimented with panelization in some of these challenges. What happens is any time that you need a slight modification, first of all, the culture is that our framers, like they when they wake up in the morning, they enjoy. So if we're using 8 framing crews or whatever, they like to know they're going right up one side of the street, down the other, whatever, and they're going to be able to do what they do. Now, what we're doing is offering something different. Well, if they're going to have to do these little bit extras, they look at, we're looking to go the other way. We're looking to have it be a saving time and money. So we're looking at our framers to go the other way. They're looking at what are these increases to learn this new stuff and fix things. So we need to pull all that together, because clearly it can't be adding, which is the old culture. And that's the difficulty, Eric. And we need to keep having those talks because obviously they're not true. I mean, that the fact of the matter is the efficiency lies within having something delivered to a site and popping it up. That's more efficient than anything.
So it's education. It's teaching. It's
Some of
teaching
it is, yes.
and educating the framers on how it is a cost savers for them, because a lot of framers, and to include myself over time, what your lineal foot of, 2x16 on center walls are. And that's how you calculate your time. And you say, well, that's 80 cents, but then the frame walls are coming in at $1. They don't know how to equate the time difference in the amount of homes. Like Eric said, when I spoke to him, it's the difference between doing 2 houses in the same time frame versus doing 3 houses in the same time frame. So
that's about,
right.
It's 2/3. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, for sure.
It's the challenge, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So thanks, Eric. We're going to look forward to that and go from there. I have somebody here. I don't know, XXSums. Can they have an internship? Send me your information.
I'll tell you what, actually too, that's funny you say that, Dave, because I was going to suggest it to you that you may, for some of these side projects that you do and some of the production and everything, we have some excellent schools around, and it's a little tougher, unfortunately, in this time that you're not going to be face to face, because when we use our interns in our company, it's much easier when you're face to face. But we have those challenges, but it's a great way to get practical experience to young people.
Yeah, no, it really is. It really is. And the fact that people are even asking, I think it's great. And believe it or not, this one thing that's come out of this platform, Greg, is there's a couple people now that they're actually networking with people within the industry. And I have young people on here all the time sending me messages thanking, hey, I got an interview because you mentioned me to this person, or I'm looking for a job. And, if that guy's or girl, I don't know what his name was on there, they would probably reach out and say, well, what are you looking to do? So that's how you're making a difference. For sure. For sure. All right. You want to plug? I know we have one more topic after this, but you got Republican Clyburn from South Carolina, majority whip tomorrow at 3 p.m.
So what we do is we have these, and it's a half hour. It's a quick talk, and Representative Clyburn, he's actually a Democrat from South Carolina, and he is the majority whip, it's called. So right under the majority leader, and he's the one, you probably remember, he endorsed Senator Biden, Vice President Biden, at the right time to get him the nomination. And he has a lot of interesting things to talk about, especially with this social unrest we're going through among the pandemic forces. So we have a lot to talk to him about, and it's a quick time slot, half hour. Just contact Bill Peck on nahb.org, and we can hook you up to get to listen. I think that the beauty of these podcasts that we do with the representatives is we can touch on some key issues as we go with all the leadership and all the people that are really in the hot seat on these issues. They're right in the focus. So it's helpful. Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. So we have some more comments rolling through, because let's run through them here real quick if we can, please. All right. Michael Smith, furthering the apprentice model integrated into secondary school with youth apprentices, while also embracing online education when practical will make substantial differences in our home building market.
Yes. That's the key, is helping to define what a new apprentice model would be, the ability to get hands-on training. That's what people want more than anything, is dependable, good, hard workers, and we can put them to work, and they're going to benefit from it. You're going to make a great living by being dependable, showing up to work, and being even if it takes you, a little while to learn what you're doing, all still welcome.
It is, absolutely. Everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Eric Holt said he agreed with Michael. The workforce training solution will take all players in the training ecosystem: high school, 2-year, 4-year apprenticeships programs, etc. I love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it. I gotta say, where I met Eric Holt the first time, they actually showed up at the summit and with us in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
That's where I met Eric as well for the first time. It's amazing that the higher education world is taking such a look at what's happening in offsite and working with us, not only here, but all around the country, Canada, Europe. So lots of fun. All right. Better construction with Sean McStay. How can the industry help to remove the social stigma sometimes associated with modular construction? Well,
I think that is one of the, when you look at the old, deliver the shoebox, maybe throw some shutters on it, maybe save the money there. That comparison, almost a lot of it comes from the manufactured home syndrome too, right? That you kind of wheel them in. So in this case, it's like night and day. Some of the things, and that's really what it is. Visual to me is key, because after the visual, like, wow, that's what we're talking about, then you can introduce all the other efficiencies, everything from being able to address energy efficiency and resiliency and your Energy Star, all of these things that you're much easier, you're in a much better position to adapt into your building cycle. It's just that those things, but first is visually, first is showing that local zoning commission, planning and zoning board, that look what we're going to offer. Really? That's what that is? Absolutely. You saw it with window types and shutters and different types of siding. Well, this is one of that. This is involved in that same process.
Yeah, it sure is. And, even to elaborate on that a little bit further, the stigma will change as the education comes out, as the marketing really starts happening and people are making the shift to offsite. But there's also this conversation, Greg, about, well, do we change our name again? And that's another thing that's happening, but then you're starting from scratch all over again. But there has been a stigma with modular construction, more so in other parts of the world than in Connecticut and Rhode Island where we're at. It's not, the stigma is not really here because there's so much of it happening. But do you name change it? What's your opinion on that?
Well, it's funny because I really look at this as being a bit similar to our whole affordable housing concept, right? So when we were marching around the country and bringing up affordable housing, all of a sudden that had different implications than we had hoped it would. So if you noticed, my year, we went straight to housing affordability. We changed the dynamic. We needed to change the face. Here, I see a lot of similarities. I think that what's happening too, and I think unfairly, everybody, and that's why, and you explained this a little bit to me too, why off-site is being used so much, because the tent is plenty big enough for everybody.
Right.
You have HUD pulling in their manufactured homes just because now you don't have to finance it like a car. You can actually finance it like a home. So they did that whole push, right? But the tent's plenty big enough. The idea is, let's be able to step forward in lockstep, working together, rather than get too caught up in what a lot of the titles and acronyms and different things mean. We're much better off saying, hey, they're one of us, no matter what it looks like. And I think we're going to get a lot further in our efforts by doing that. Be welcoming.